Hello, everyone. This is James Nussbaumer, and I've gotten so many requests through my social media, the regular media, and my publisher has asked me to come forward and make a statement. And so many friends that want to know what and where and why and how did this book come about? The Master of Everything, the pilot of an ever-developing series. Uh, the Master of Everything, a story of mankind in the world of illusion we call life. How did it develop? Where did it come from? For those of you that know me, know that I was, back in 2006, I was indicted for a foolish securities violation as a financial advisor, and where I spent 25 years in that business. And I was sentenced to prison for 10 years. I did 8 years, and that's what I'm going to explain how this book came about. So let's get going right now. I want to save some time, and I have some notes over here on the side. So if I kind of go away from the camera, please understand that I got to stick to my notes because I want to make sure that I get the information right. And it's a little difficult for me because I'm going back in time, and it's an emotional thing too, because where this book has come from is it's very emotional, and it's a very deep thing with me. But let's get started, and we'll go from here. And it goes like this. Basically, really, this is the way it is. There is not a single doubt in my mind. It was divinely intended that my life's journey be greeted by the publication that would open my mind and set me free. That publication is called A Course in Miracles. These teachings of A Course in Miracles, these teachings of inner peace that the Course teaches, have answered my lifelong questions to the mystery of all that exists while proving to me the truth about forgiveness, the real meaning of forgiveness. A Course in Miracles asks us to hear this single question, which is very important if you'll listen to this question right here, because there's a key word in this question that will alert your mind to things I'm going to be talking about. That single question is, who is the light of the real world except God's Son? I'll repeat that. A Course in Miracles asks us to hear this single question. Who is the light of the real world except God's Son? Or you could substitute son and say, who is the light of the real world except God's child? Surely this is a question for us to absorb, but more so it is merely a statement of the truth about ourselves. For we are the light of the world. We only use a masculine overtone because that's what we're used to as humans. It could be called son, it could be daughter. It's just a word in the alphabet. For we are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. I am the light of the world. Together, you and I are that light. And this light emanates from our source, which is the creator of all that is real. Yes, it emanates from the creator of all that is real. This is the opposite of a statement of pride or arrogance or self-deception. It simply states the truth about who we are. The truth about who you are. When I wrote this book, The Master of Everything, I was writing it from prison. And as I wrote these words by hand into composition journal, the old-fashioned kind with a black and white mottled cover and lined pages, you know, I look back to when I was first shoved hard into a 6 by 9 foot cell clothed in rags. As I stumbled to the floor, the overbearing guard in a state prison, not a federal prison, state prison, a state penitentiary in Ohio, which doesn't have the budget that the federal prisons have. So I was mixed in with all of them, with everyone. As I stumbled to the floor, the overbearing guard growled, "Welcome to the state of Ohio." I sat there on the floor in the corner of that cell, pretty much the same individual as I am today. Not much difference. However, today I see that the truth has moved to the front of my mind. And when I say the truth, not the truth that we all think of the truth. I'm talking about that inner core truth about who we are has moved to the front of my mind. And that's kind of hard to understand, but bear with me. I believe this change, both drastic and subtle, that I went through had much to do with my survival. I will admit that. Sure, I was in panic mode, and I had to rely on my inner self. I had to take my body out of the picture and rely on my inner gut strength. So this had much to do with my survival. Absolutely it did. And since I had been stripped of my world, which I lost everything in the physical world when I went to prison, or maybe we could say it was my dignity. You know, dignity seems like something we need in order to survive as who we think we are. Well, you know, at least we are taught this, aren't we? As I was writing the words for this book, The Master of Everything, I have nothing, and I had nothing at the time in this world other than who I was. And I remember telling myself, as I was writing this, you know, I have nothing to offer. I have nothing here other than who I am. I often wonder, does this mean, do we really have dignity after it all when we're at our lowest? And that was a question I asked to myself. Did I really have my dignity since I lost everything? Everything in the physical world I lost. I mean, everything. In facing a 10-year prison sentence, does this mean where is my dignity? Well, I describe in this book, The Master of Everything, of my experiences of prison life. Some of them, but many of them I'll never mention to anyone, only because it really doesn't matter. I will describe what I have experienced as an undoing of old patterns of thinking, which has been a transformation initiated and then guided by a part of me that eternally lives. It's that same part in you that eternally lives, that we are one with. It's that same part in you that eternally lives, that is listening to me right now and connecting with me. It's that same part in you, that's listening to me and wants to go further. It's that same part in you that wants to hear me continue this. It's that same part in you that wants to hear me to the end of this. The process necessarily required a stripping away. It's the undoing process I'm talking about that required a stripping away in order to bring on the new patterns that I needed to incorporate, which were truly of who I have always been anyway. I began an inward journey that told me that it must continue, and I was excited about that. Keep in mind, while shaken up and kind of in shock from being in prison for the first time ever in my life, facing 10 years. But the inward journey was telling me that the journey's going to continue. And because it was taking me where I knew I must go, it's a journey about not only who I am, but also what I am. I can tell you that what I was feeling at the moment when I knew I had to take this journey, it was peaceful, blissful, and exciting. I can tell you that the same process is available to you regardless of your circumstances. I remember sitting in that stinking cell, moving quickly to the depths of my mind without realizing how deep I was going. The experience was definitely more than just what I'd been cautioned it might be. Many would say shock. I heard one guard telling another guard that I must be in shock when I wouldn't answer any of their questions. I kept my head down between my legs and wouldn't answer their questions. Something was directing me to go deep where a feeling or sensation had welcomed me. I almost felt like a child again. It was that feeling of being cradled and told that everything would be okay. I also knew that I had no choice but to accept the embrace. I realized in the weeks and the months ahead, inside these block walls and steel bars, that what had embraced me was my own true strength. Yes, it was as if I were being waved on inside of myself to join in to something deep and serious and never ending, but I still had to go deeper where something was waiting to greet me. The sensation was mysterious and encouraging, as though whatever was waiting had been hidden away for all those years of my life. Physically, I was very, very weak. And this inner place that had been obscured for so long was really my long lost home. Believe me, I was so weak because I had spent months in the county jail before even getting to prison. So I was very, very physically weak. And that's why I say, physically I was so weak. I was very weak, but this inner place I found that I was starting to realize had been obscured, had been clouded over for so long. I knew it was really my long lost home. But much of the world lives by a thought system that teaches us that our body should be regarded as our temple. And this is true. However, I believe it applies only to the surface of who we express ourselves to be, where gaining and winning are all so important. But for the most part, honoring the body is only a minor step in answering that one question much of the world struggles with. And that question is, who really am I? Our temple is not a structure at all, such as a building or excuse me, I get tongue-tied. Our temple is not a structure at all, such as our body or a building, but every temple has its altar where holiness abides. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a temple. But what is holiness? Isn't it what you really are about? But rather than viewing our body as the temple, let's consider the structure of our temple as our true essence, or being, if you will. Deep within that being, deep within that structure, deep within that true essence of life is where our altar sits. And it is at this altar where we see our life's purpose. This is what emanates the light, or is the true essence of who we are. This is our being, if you will. I wrote this book, The Master of Everything, which I'm so proud of. I wrote this book entirely in longhand from behind bars in an overcrowded, overbearing, and obnoxiously overloud prison environment, the violent din of the cell block, where inmates live in one another's faces all day and all night long. The atmosphere is violent, it's so volatile, it's unbelievable. Often I believe this is what brought these words from my mind through the pen and onto the paper. I would sit there and wait to be released by a judge who says he used me as an example. The waiting was so extremely difficult, but I knew it was only temporary. I knew that the worst that could happen is that I would spend 10 years in prison. I was surrounded by people doing life sentences for murder, rape, and all the crimes that you can think of. I was living with people that were doing life sentences, and many of them became my friends while I was in there. But the waiting was so difficult, but I knew that 10 years would be the most I could spend there. So that was my glimmer of hope. So therefore, I knew my stay there was temporary. This project right here, The Master of Everything, has saved me in more ways than one while I was away. And it grew as I did. I wrote this book solely by myself with helpful suggestions from a oneness, the light, the oneness of which we all are a part of. The oneness, I call it God. You can call it whatever you want, but I call it God because that's what we're used to, and I'm used to it. So why confuse the matter? Doesn't matter. The word God is just alphabets in the language, in our language. I call it God. Writing this book has kept me busy. And it has, when I was in prison, has kept me busy. And at times I would lose sleep at night, anxiously waiting to pick up where I left off the day before. It really did consume me every single day. And each day I received as a gift words that I could not seem to find the previous day. I would often wake up in the middle of the night and think, that's it. A sentence that was needed, that I was stumbling upon. I needed to get a final sentence to a paragraph or something, or a metaphor that I needed to help explain an idea. Something to assist in an area I seemed to be stuck on would appear in my mind. And today, here is this beautiful book in my hands right now as I'm talking to you. But when the final chapter was nearing its completion, as I was handwriting this with no computer in prison, a blissful feeling continued to flow through me. I knew I was going to miss this project, and I knew I had to start on another project. But I was sad too, because I could not get it to mature beyond the handwritten stage, due to the ruling stating no computer usage whatsoever in this backwoods prison system that I was being held in. My only other resource was not really a resource at all, but was available if I wished to stand in line and use the ancient, poor quality prison typewriter with missing keys and ribbons that didn't have ink, and just a terrible, terrible mess with typewriters. Need I say, not only was this poor quality, but not nearly up to a publisher's standards to put a manuscript together. So I didn't have that capability there. This was a feeling like not being able to send your cherished kid off to college. The kid who desperately wanted to change the world. You knew that they could, or were going to make a difference. But regardless, my words did mature into book form for that time being in prison. I'm going back to when I was in prison. They did mature into book form, handwritten into a growing pile of journals. This would be fine for the time being. Help will be on its way in due time. A voice or a thought inside of me continued to assure me. When I say a voice, it's really not a voice, physical voice speaking. I'm talking about a voice it's thought, pure thought inside me said, just keep going. Everything will be okay in due time. And as the journals that I hand wrote, the journals sat in the bottom of my footlocker, that same voice, that same pure thought encouraged me to keep on writing. This book that I'm talking about surely is a child to me, and in many respects, it has been like the experience of watching my daughters grow to adulthood. I remember asking them in a joking and affectionate, fun-loving manner on their birthdays when they were little girls to promise me not to grow any older. I'd say, come on, don't grow any older. I would say that I wish they would remain cute little girls forever. And they'd say, oh, Dad, we have to grow up. And they would know I was kidding, and they would, giggly laugh, and it would be funny, and it was a loving thing. But inevitably, they did grow up. Just like my little girls, my book now is grown up. Here it is. And back then, I was thinking, my gosh, how am I going to get it done? But I got her done. Sooner or later, the words for the sequels to this book are going to be in your hands, and hopefully helping those who are lost, confused in their own way, as I once was, or perhaps even if you're not confused, or perhaps for those that are who are searching, but just aren't certain, what it is they actually want to discover they're going to find their true free will is always something that they need to tap into. That's what you'll find as a serious reader of my books. Of course, by the time you are reading my books, the sequel to this book and the ones to come later, I will be traveling extensively. But from where I stand now, I'm wondering how I will continue to get the necessary promotion and everything of my books on its way, because that's a problem I'm having now. That's why I'm making this video. But I've also been told to hold on, to hold on. Help is on its way. Other individuals whom I have not yet met will arrive onto the scene. And their help is soon to get here, when it in its due time, when it's supposed to be here. And help move the process along. I see this as a natural progression. Just as the many other adults who arrive to play a role in the upbringing and the maturing of my daughters, in addition to me as their father, I can honestly and openly tell you that I have been advised by the one who knows, the light, that I should relax while I proceed with the suggested promotion of this book. I've been advised also that I need to trust that the right people are going to start showing up at the right times, and they are already, and they're more on their way. Events are being arranged at this very moment while I continue with my work. In fact, events are being arranged right now that will give you a reason to seek out this book and the sequels to this book, or events are being arranged to where someone that you know may have a reason to buy that book for you, or whatever that may be. We say that everything happens for a reason, and I believe in that. Everything does happen for a reason. I have already been instructed to turn over everything to my teacher and my guide. He guarantees this project will arrive, and the promotion will arrive and will escalate in time as a published full-blown series for those who are ready to calmly listen, see, and learn as I have. By the time you are reading the sequels to my book, like I had said, I may be in an area near your home, in your town. If you see me at a book signing somewhere, please feel free to just stop up and say, hey, my name is Mary, or my name is Don, or whatever it is. I would love that. That would be great. Because, we're all on a spiritual journey, and we all need inspiration behind us. For those of you who are already ready and who already feel that you're on top of your spirituality and your inspiration, and for those who can glimpse readiness, or kind of glimpse that they need to dive deeper into their depths, if you can remember that forgiveness is the key to unlocking the door to your own inner depths, to get to the gut of who you are, then you will live a life that encompasses your own true free will. Then you will be living a life on purpose. If you can get to the gut, to the core of what you are about, to your own inner depths, and just live with that, honestly, live with that, you will have it all. You will know this to be your home. I gotta go now, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you. God bless. And I hope to see you down the road.